The biggest barrier to transformational gifts usually isn't finding the right donors. It's knowing how to talk to them. In today's episode, Eddie and Russell discuss the donor conversations most fundraisers avoid and why avoiding them is costing nonprofits far more than they realize. I'm Casey Powell, president of Thompson and Associates, and this is the Fundraising Paradox podcast, where the science and the real-world experience of major gift fundraising collide and reveal the same surprising truth. Here's Dr. Eddie Thompson and Dr. Russell James.
Well, thank you for joining us in our podcast today. I'm Eddie Thompson, the CEO of Thompson and Associates, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Dr. Russell James. Russell?
It's great to be here, Eddie. I'm Russell James. I'm a professor in the School of Financial Planning at Texas Tech University, and that's where I teach charitable financial planning. So looking forward to our conversations for sure.
So we're going to begin with this topic today that I think has real value, and I can't wait for our discussion about this and get your insights. I want to ask you, do you think charities are dropping the ball when it comes to gift planning?
Well, there's so much that's included in that gift planning idea. There's a lot of missed opportunities, I'll say. And let's start with the most fundamental, which is sometimes I like to put it this way, Eddie. You've got financial advisors. They're happy to talk about wealth,
Yes.
but they are afraid to talk about philanthropy. You've got fundraisers. They're happy to talk about philanthropy, but they're afraid to talk about wealth. And so because of that, we've got essentially nobody talking about wealth sharing, right? Some are talking about wealth, some are talking about sharing, but nobody's talking about wealth sharing. So at that really fundamental level, I think that's what's missing. Now, obviously, there's lots of little strategies within that, right? Maybe we're talking about estate planning, or maybe we're talking about qualified charitable distributions from an IRA or IRA rollover, or giving appreciated assets, whatever it might be. But I think that is the fundamental thing that the charities are missing. And many of them, I don't know if you've heard this, Eddie, but many of them, you'll try to have that conversation and you get this resistance. I mean, frankly, these are people, not numbers people, so they don't want to do it. But you get this resistance and you'll hear things like, oh, they've got their advisors for that,
Yes.
right? And that notion that you don't need to be part of the process, that you don't need to be at the table, doesn't make any sense. Because frankly, for many financial advisors, they're compensated based upon assets under management, how much wealth they accumulate, and sending any of it elsewhere seems a little, well, not their favorite thing to do. And if you think that person is going to be representing your nonprofit goals, I think that's a little bit of a misunderstanding, and it's just, frankly, it's a way for a lot of fundraisers to say, well, I don't need to learn about any of this because I didn't really want to learn about it in the first place.
I think they
And
make a number of assumptions. One is that their wealthiest donors have an estate plan or have gifts already planned, and then they're disappointed when they find out they don't. You know, it's been interesting. When I first started, I started as a gift planning officer. And I always hit a roadblock in that I did not have the advantage of looking at a donor's net worth statement.
mm,
They just didn't want to share it with me for some reason. I think they assumed I wanted all of it in the process. And the reason we transitioned to charitable estate planning is for that very advantage, to be the bridge. You know, I know as some of our discussions in the past have dealt with fewer and fewer nonprofits, and this can be quantified, data is there.
mhm,
Fewer and fewer nonprofits are engaging people as gift planners. They're hiring more major slash gift planners.
mhm.
So I want to ask What do you think about that? Is that a good suggestion? What's the positives? What are the negatives? And I have some opinions on that as well.
Yeah. So I'm not against it and I'm not for it because you can do it in a way that makes perfect sense and you can do it in a way that doesn't make sense at all. What I mean by that is this. In an ideal world, your major gift fundraiser is also your asset-based giving fundraiser. That they want to talk about big gifts. Big relative to the donor means they're going to be asset gifts. Wealth is not held in cash. It's held in all these various asset categories. So that can be a natural fit, right? That I'm talking with this person about the impact that they want to make, and then we start looking at what are the best ways to make that impact. What are the best assets to use for this gift? The problem is that the way it really works in practice is oftentimes the asset-based giving expertise just disappears. That doesn't exist at the organization anymore. And there is this fundamental challenge that people who are good at fundraising, they are people. They are social people. They have high emotional intelligence. Those may not be your CPA accountant types that get really excited about, hey,
Numbers.
here's a tax efficient strategy
Yeah.
to accomplish your charitable goals. And so sometimes that second piece just falls out. So on the flip side, you can have an organization that says, well, we have our plan giving person. That's the guy that sits in the back office and does spreadsheets, and not really much impact for donors, or how the frontline fundraisers are having conversations or what they're asking. Of course, that kind of complete silos, that may not be good as well. So I don't know, Eddie, what have you seen, how this plays out?
I think we're struggling with it, to be honest with you, because they're typically measured not on gifts of major assets, and just dollar amounts.
Mhm,
And so we go for the easy cash. I remember, I think, Russell, I'm right about this, but whenever we met for the first time, it was for a dinner somewhere at some restaurant.
mhm,
And I remember us talking about the difference between discretionary income gifts and gifts of net worth. And one of the things I discovered in my dissertation, which I believe you did as well, is that the real gifts come from net worth,
sure.
major gifts of assets.
Mhm,
I believe what we're seeing today is this rush for cash,
mm,
where
mhm,
we're putting most of our emphasis on getting that check.
mhm,
And that's what's typically measured. I think one of the things you have brought to the table is a clear understanding that if someone makes an estate gift or an inter vivos gift, they tend to give more.
mhm,
And that's been our experience as well. And one of the things I appreciate is that we need more education. And for our major gift officers, annual gift officers, I don't know why we exclusively make it major gift officers, but annual gift officers as well. And I think one of the real shortcomings of our industry is a lack of education.
mm.
Now, I'm going to give you a plug here. That's okay if you won't be offended by this. Some of the best videos, and I mean some of the best videos you have produced on different types of gifts. I don't remember what you entitled it. You might want to give us the title, but the kind of the fundraising 101.
Mhm,
And then in recent years, your emphasis, which I agree with 100%, and that is there's joy in giving.
mm,
When
mhm,
people know how to enjoy their wealth, it's not fundraising by extraction.
mm, mhm,
It's deeper than that.
mhm.
And so, if you don't mind, two things. One, if you'll share with us some of the videos you have available, how they can find them, and I really want to encourage you to do that. And don't be modest at this point in time. We're trying to educate, and I also want to encourage people to attend their local conference or their local councils, gift planning council. And we also have what's called the Charitable Estate Planning Institute, which is a deep dive into the technical. But Russell, share with us where people can find your videos.
Yeah, so I share all my stuff for free, and the easiest way to get to that stuff is at encouragegenerosity.com. So if you just go to encouragegenerosity.com, it's got links to all the videos. Those are on YouTube as well. It's just kind of easier to find the full collection if you go to encouragegenerosity.com. And so whether you want books or law review articles that I've written or slide decks from presentations, videos, that's all there for free. So,
They're incredible.
well, thanks,
And it
thanks.
was really funny. One of our newest attorneys who just finished law school was looking at various ways to learn about planned giving. And he said, I found these videos by by Russell James. I said, really? And he was so excited about it. Let me ask you
Great.
one quick question with a quick response, and I want to
Yeah,
shift to this a little bit.
that's fine.
How much of charitable planning is taught in law school?
So on average, it's 0.0%. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to that. If, for example, you take an advanced estate and gift taxation and planning course, then you might have some exposure to that. That might be more at the LLM
Yeah.
stage, which
Hmm.
is after the law school Juris Doctor. But the assumption would be if you're just talking to an attorney, the assumption should be that their level of knowledge is pretty close to that 0% level, unless that's their area of practice. So it is, and again, it's the same thing. Like, I'll give you an example. I speak to a lot of financial planning groups. And what I find is that I'm going to say a good half of them, majority of them, don't even know the basics of, oh, if you give an appreciated asset, you get a
Amazing.
double tax benefit as
Amazing.
compared to giving cash. I mean that's like the first hour of the first day, or first 15 minutes of the first day, and it's just not there. So this idea that, oh no, they've got people for that, like, well, yeah, not necessarily.
What I would suggest is that a lot of attorneys understand, estate planning attorneys
Yeah.
particularly, understand bypass planning.
Hmm.
The charitable is, I remember I'm talking to an attorney about a lead trust, and he said, I've never heard of a lead trust. I sent him the information on it. Uh, you know, I would suggest two things. One is that we have a golden opportunity for major gift officers, gift planning officers to spend about 10% of their time with professional advisors. Go meet them,
Hmm.
especially investment advisors. I read a statistic some time ago, and I want to see if you would agree with this, that 76% of all planned gifts are initiated by investment advisors. Now, is that right? I don't know, but I'm telling you, it is not infrequent.
Hmm.
And so get out and meet those individuals and become a resource to them when they have those questions
Hmm.
when it comes to charitable giving. I know at Vanderbilt Law, when we took trust in estates, that they said there's two types of charitable trust, a unit trust and annuity trust. Be careful when you draft them. So that was about the extent of it. So if you were starting your career over and you were a gift planning officer or a major gift officer,
Hmm.
what would you focus on as far as educating yourself on gift planning?
So I think you start simple and you grow from there. You begin with the idea that I want to bring value to my donors, right? And that seems basic, right? The idea that, as you mentioned earlier, if the donors enjoy this and have more fun doing it, they're more likely to do it again. I find myself speaking to fundraising groups and having to explain that to them, right? That if you make it more enjoyable, donors will do it more.
Right.
And the reason that sometimes those fundamentals are so hard is that You get people who are just talking to other nonprofit insiders, and they think that, well, we are so amazing. We just need to get our story out to people. And if we just keep telling our story to more people, then they're going to just give as much as they can.
Russell, I want to stop you. And I
Okay.
want you to emphasize this. This is, I think, our greatest mistake. We
Mm.
talk too much. And my dad used to say, God gave you two eyes, two ears, one mouth, use them accordingly. So expand on that.
So the reality is that is a small gift message. That is a pat on the head gift message.
Absolutely.
The idea of, let me tell you how wonderful we are. And so the assumption is that, oh, that's all we need to do. And we just, well, if we're not raising enough, we just need to tell more people how wonderful we are,
Yeah.
or tell our people more often how wonderful we are.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't understand is that the big gift message does not start with, let me tell you how wonderful we are. The big gift message starts with, tell me about what's important to you,
Wow.
right? What is your motivation for philanthropy? Tell me about your life story and your values, maybe your people connections. And then let's talk about big goals, right? Like if money were no object, what kind of an impact would you like to make on this cause, right? What kind of a legacy would you like to leave in the world? And then figuring out what would be the most enjoyable gift,
Oh, there you go.
experience,
There you go.
impact for this donor. Because once you figure that out, now you're talking about major gifts. You're talking about major life investment
There
gifts,
you go.
things that will compel that. And so, Eddie, I have to share this. I was presenting, and it reminded me because I had just a few weeks ago was presenting for the same group before about fundraising for some fundraisers, and one lady was in the audience, and small nonprofit, just learned about fundraising, went through all the concepts about helping the donor tell their story and storytelling elements and all of that. And afterwards, she raised her hand and she said, "But I just want their money. Can't I just tell them that?" And
Did you pound your
I,
head or
no, like for me, like she was saying the quiet part out loud. Like
right?
so many people representing nonprofits come to these donor conversations with that idea, and so when I start talking about your goal as a fundraiser is to provide value to the donor. You want to not only, hey, here's the smartest way to give, but value in terms of, I want them to have a life changing experience with this gift, right? It's not a matter of, oh, they wrote the check and so now let's move on. No, it's like we've got to deliver on that donor experience so that they feel like, wow, that was the best gift I've ever made. That's what leads to the next and the bigger and the major life investment gift.
I want to make two quick points. One is
Yeah.
we need to be giving them a ribbon cutting experience, every
Mm,
single one of them, where they feel it. Uh, uh, Ultimately, would you agree that philanthropy is driven by emotion, feeling?
mhm,
At least it's a major component.
mhm,
And I find that the people I work with, they're making an investment. And these are typically people, obviously, who understand how to make an investment. They have questions, and almost all of them have life situations that they're trying to address simultaneously.
mm,
I believe I worked on a blog this morning on this very topic. Interesting. I didn't think about it as our podcast today, but most of the donors I have worked with have life situations that they're trying to decide how to address. And part of that is philanthropy. And the point I think you make so extremely well is that this is complex and yet it's simple. That we talk too much and listen infrequently.
mm.
I think the brilliance you have brought to this is helping us understand how to have those conversations, where they start, what's the middle, and what's the end. And they have to, once they feel it, I mean, how many times have you seen a donor thank you for accepting a gift?
Mm. Well, that's how you know you're starting to do it right.
That's it. When they come to tear
Mm.
because they're making a gift and they feel it deeply. Now, we both understand the word philanthropy comes from two Greek words, philo and anthropos, and that's loving mankind, wanting to make a difference in people's lives. There's nothing more rewarding than making a difference. And then when you have the resources to make the difference, it just expands from there. So, another question for you.
Yeah.
If you were in charge of a nonprofit, how would you balance getting discretionary income gifts and gifts of net worth? Here you are sitting in the chair, you're making the decisions. How would you find that balance?
So you definitely want to have that opportunity to throw the broad net, get the small gifts, the kind of broadcast communications, but understand that financially the purpose of those gifts is just hand raising. It's just this person is letting you know I have interest, and that the money actually comes from those who have capacity to make these gifts that can really transform the organization in many cases. So you begin with the idea of understanding that, we want all kinds of donors, we want all sizes of gifts, but the purpose of the small gifts is to get a hand raising experience, to be able to develop those relationships with the high capacity folks, who can fundamentally or financially make that kind of a difference. And if we understand that that's where the economic engine comes from, then we've got to have a little bit different timelines. That it's not just a matter of, oh, I desperately want that next knee jerk gift to come a few days earlier. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a gift conversation process that should be about 18 months for a specific gift. And by that, I mean repeated contacts and conversations in that process. And again, one of the things that I think would help is if at an organizational level, we started looking at donors in terms of what is the customer experience, right?
Yep.
What kind of value are we delivering to donors with that customer experience? Because sometimes those fundamentals just get lost. That the approach is no, their customer experience is not important. What's important is that we do good work with their money. Okay, that is important, but they're not going to come back and give again if their donor experience wasn't worth the gift, right? So I guess I would start at it fundamentally by saying we want the donor experience to be worth the gift. And part of that is using it in a right way, but part of it is for them to have the experience of the impact that their gift is making.
You know, back a number of years ago, there was a statistic that about three-fourths of people who ceased to give to a charity felt like they had lost the relationship. So it sounds to me like what you're suggesting is that this starts with building that relationship, which is a two-way of street. Uh, with the last few minutes we have together, Russell, a number of years ago, we did a podcast together on convincing, let's see if I can remember the title of this podcast, convincing CFOs to invest.
Yes.
and gifts of major assets. Do you remember that conversation we
Yes.
had?
Hmm.
Okay. If you had one bit of advice and you had a CDO sitting here talking with you, and they were saying our CFO simply will not invest in these gifts of major gifts of assets, the training that comes with it, the time it takes to work these gifts, what would be one bit of advice you would give them?
So, Eddie, it's tough. I'm a professor. You ask me a question, I want to give you a 50-minute lecture.
Okay, get
But
30 seconds.
but number one, this is what big gifts look like. Ask the CFO, do you want big gifts? Yeah, I want big gifts. Okay, this is what big gifts look like. There was a study done of the largest gifts made to colleges and universities at every level. And it found that only 14% of those gifts included even a single dollar of cash. Like that's what big gifts look like. Big gifts are asset gifts. Big gifts, CFO is not going to like this. Big gifts come with instructions. Okay,
Yep,
they just do. Right? They
yep,
always have, even historically. You look at
yep,
will documents from the 1800s, same thing,
yep.
right? Modern, it's more private foundations, and big gifts come with instructions. It was the same thing in that study of the largest gifts to various colleges and universities. These gifts aren't unrestricted cash gifts, right?
Right.
Big gifts come with instructions. So I think you start with the idea of, as silly as it sounds, do you want big gifts? Because if you do, this is what they look like. They're asset gifts, they're gifts that come with instructions, they're gifts that accomplish specific things that are personally meaningful and visualizable. And if you put it in those terms, then I think maybe it helps because from the CFO's perspective, it's often, well, we just want the cash, right? Because I need to spend that. Okay, do you want big gifts?
There you go. I've
That
always told my children, if you want to be successful, do what successful people do. And I would suggest if you want to be a successful nonprofit, do what successful nonprofits do.
mm,
And that's a
mhm.
basic principle, a lesson of life. As we wrap up today, I want to ask you one other simple question. What is the most important lesson you've learned in all of your research? What's the one thing that stands out to you as the most important lesson you've learned?
Eddie, I suppose it comes back to what we've been talking about today, which when I started, I think the idea was, well, a gift is a gift, right? To motivate somebody to give you $20 or $100 or shares of stock or a share of their estate or whatever. It's a gift is a gift, right? And I think it helps to understand that major life investment gifts are different. Asset gifts are, wealth sharing. That it's different. And where charities are missing out is they are missing the wealth sharing conversations.
So true.
And so, I mean, income sharing is great, and they're great at having those disposable income sharing conversations. Oftentimes, they don't need my help with that, right? But where they are missing out is wealth sharing conversations, and what do those gifts look like, and what do those gifts do? Um, because that's where the real impact is. So I think it is that split to understand that there's a difference between wealth sharing and disposable income there, sharing. There's a difference in the conversations. There's a difference in the complexity. There's a difference in the approaches. There's a difference in the donors.
It is amazing. We get what we ask for, typically. And I would end this today by suggesting you cannot dream big enough dreams if you help your donors dream,
Mm.
if you listen to them and help them. Russell, As always, I love our time together. Appreciate our friendship. I look forward to our next podcast together.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on episode 1 of the Fundraising Paradox podcast. If you walk away with only one thing from this episode, I hope it's this. The biggest gifts your organization will receive are not sitting in somebody's checking account. They're in stock portfolios, real estate, and retirement accounts. And you already know those donors. Maybe you just haven't had the right conversation with them yet. And that conversation starts with education, not an ask. 2 resources worth exploring. Dr. Russell James's free resource library at encouragegenerosity.com. There's research, there's tools, and a ton of educational content your team can use right now. And the website for Thompson and Associates at ceplan.com, where our team works alongside nonprofits to build exactly this kind of program. We'll see you next time when Russell leads a discussion on seeking out your wealth holders.